Morning, Rotarians and guests. I'm Joe Avella, President of the Hudson Rotary. Our invocation this morning is by Kelly Brennan.
Good morning.
Good morning, Kelly.
We can bow our heads. Praise God, from whom all blessings flow, for food in the world where many may walk in hunger, for faith in the world where many may walk in fear, for friends in the world where many may walk alone. We give you thanks, Lord. Amen.
And back from Arizona to lead us in the pledge and the four-way test, Jim Ahern.
Thank you. Good morning. Glad to be back. Pledge. I pledge allegiance to the flag of the United States of America and to the republic for which it stands, one nation, under God, indivisible, with liberty and justice for all. The four-way test of the things we think, say, or do. First, is it true? Second, is it fair to all concerned? Third, will it build goodwill and better friendships? And fourth, will it be beneficial to all concerned?
And Dick Pearsall, lead us in song.
When you look outside today, you see the snow, and it is a beautiful scene. So I thought maybe today we'd sing America the Beautiful. We even got the words. Here we go. Oh, beautiful for spacious skies, for amber waves of grain, for purple mountains' majesty, above the feuded plain. Give it a kick. America, America, God shed his grace on thee, and crowned thy good with brotherhood, from sea to shining sea. Give me
Okay, you may be seated. That gets us going in the morning. Chris Barker, our secretary, would like to announce some guests.
We have a full house today. Well, good morning, Rotarians and many guests. If the guests would please stand up when I call their names so that we could greet them. First, we have Jim Miller, guest of Tom Murdow. Thank you for joining us. And then today we have Lonnie Banner and Jamie Cosman, co-teachers for the Hudson Service Learning class, and 2 of their students. And then Brad Nelson brought with him today Bill Kinney. Bill, thank you for joining us. And Dave Browning is a guest from the Cleveland Avon Rotary, and he's a guest of Rich Warfield's. Thank you for joining us. And I would also like to mention to Rotarians that if any of you are interested in purchasing a gold badge, please let me know. I think there's about 8 of you that are interested. The cost will be $11. So if you can let me know within the next few days, I'm going to place an order. Thank you.
Okay, thanks, Chris. So, James, would James Field to talk about Relay for Life. Oh, I got you in the the buffet line.
I actually don't need the breakfast, but anyway, just going to take 2 seconds. I did send an email out about Hudson Relay for Life, which is coming up in June 11th, Saturday from 10 to 10 at Lavelli Field. It's, if you're not familiar, it's a great event. It really, it's one of the major fundraisers for the American Cancer Society. 100% of the money goes to the American Cancer Society. So unlike, many charities, unfortunately some charities that don't flow it all back, this is one that certainly does, and one that's affected, I think, all of us at some point. So anyway, so you can sign up online. You don't need to do a donation, although that's kind of the idea of the event. And then you can, it doesn't mean you have to be there that day, although again, it would be fun to attend. Also, a fundraiser we did last year that was extremely successful is we did a raffle for a basket of wines. And so same as last year, we're going to see if you have a spare bottle sitting back there, 1 or 2, we'll throw it in the basket, and then that raised quite a bit of money. So any extra wines you have, you can just bring them to the meeting, and then I'll put them in this basket for the raffle. And then also, I will not be here next week. There's an educators workshop by an organization that's promoting themselves to education. I'm going to be at Paris Island. The Marine Corps has a workshop that is where they take educators through all the various aspects, and the idea is that we would then pass on to students that opportunity. I sent the itinerary to my father-in-law, who was a retired Marine colonel, and he said he was amazed I was going to stay in a hotel. And I said, so what hotel did you stay in when you were? He said, well, it was a tent on the beach with sandfly maggots. So anyway, so bring wine, sign up. I will also bring paper applications to at a future meeting. So thank you.
Okay, thank you, James. So hey, James.
James, yep.
The screen.
Oh, you can go to the PowerPoint.
So every week we have a 3-minute Rotarian, and today that 3-minute Rotarian is me. When we get it up. 3 minutes. 3 minutes. Okay. So I grew up in Trenton, New Jersey, the capital in New Jersey. This is Trenton, right along the Delaware River. If you go south about 20 miles, you come to Philadelphia. If you go north to your left, you will come to Washington Crossing State Park, where Washington crossed the Delaware. Used to go to this park frequently, well, for school outings and family outings. I actually, okay, James. Oh, I actually lived in a town called Ewing, typical high school just outside of Trenton. When I graduated from high school, I went on to Rutgers University. Rutgers has many campuses now in New Jersey. I went to the New Brunswick campus. Rutgers is the 8th oldest college in the United States, established in 1766. It's one of the 9 colonial colleges formed before the Revolutionary War. An interesting fact for sports buffs is that Rutgers and Princeton held the first college football game in November 1869. And Rutgers happened to win 6-4. But they were playing the London Rules or something like that. It was a combination of rugby, soccer, and football, I think, back then. So, yeah, I wasn't on that team. When I graduated from Rutgers, I was commissioned a second lieutenant in the military, and spent a year, 4 months later, spent a year in Vietnam working with landing craft. And an interesting fact is that this is one of our Army boats. Actually, the Army, at least back then, has more boats than the Navy. I don't know if you knew that. The Navy has more ships. The Army has more boats. So after Vietnam, I stayed in the military another 25-plus years, part-time in the National Guard, and retired in the early 90s as a lieutenant colonel. But my real work started when I returned from Vietnam. I joined General Electric as a financial management trainee, and then spent the rest of my career in a number of different organizations in the area of financial management. Mostly I ran the finance and accounting departments at corporations. So I joined Alcan. When Alcan sold their building products businesses, we formed Gentech, and that's when I moved here with my wife Carol 20 years ago this past summer. So, when I'm not here in Rotary, I like to spend time with my granddaughters. I have 3 granddaughters. My granddaughter Abigail is in Tallahassee, and I have two little granddaughters in Omaha, Nebraska. They're in the center. That's my son on your right, my son Brandon, and his wife Valerie. And appropriately standing next to Goofy is my wife Carol. So, that's it. Thank you. Thank you. Okay. All right. Now, next week we have a very busy schedule, so we have no 3-minute Rotarian. But the following week, March the 2nd, we will have time for a Rotarian, and that will be Catherine Sines. You're here then, Catherine? March the 2nd? Is that punishment for me? Yes. Okay, we're happy to have Lonnie Banner here with us today, who will introduce a couple of her students.
Good morning, everyone. Good morning. Happy to see you, and a special thank you to Mr. Herman and Mrs. Sines for our fantastic snow day yesterday. Thank you, thank you. But anyways, as always, thank you so much for being supportive and welcoming to the Hudson High School Service Learning Program. We have an up-and-coming event that you may want to participate in, so check in with Gail. But what's going to be happening soon is we're going to be looking at some international, national, state, local, and school issues in terms of the government, and students are going to be selecting ideas and then presenting solutions about how we can benefit or how we can better these areas of our government. And we would love to have you there to assist in these presentations. So if you're interested, Gail's got a list of potential dates and topics. So see her, and we'd love to see you at the high school. But anyways, I've got 2 fantastic students here today to talk to you a little bit about their sites and their service. So Miss Jordan, you're going to be up first. So.
Hi, I'm Jordan Nenny, and I'm a member of the Service Learning family at Hudson High School. And when I was actually accepted into Service Learning, I was thrilled. And I knew that my senior year was probably going to be like the best year yet from high school because of all like the experiences and all the people that I would meet, and come close with so many students in my grade who I maybe never talked to before. So that was amazing. And my first semester site was Haven Homes Assisted Living in Stowe. And I can say with confidence that Haven Homes has definitely changed my life because of like the staff members, all the relationships I built with them, and the 16 residents living there. I can say that no matter how old the people are that are living there, there was never a dull moment, and I don't think I've ever laughed harder than being there with those people. And I even actually wrote my college essay about 2 women there, Joyce and Alma. They're my favorite people there, and they were hilarious, and they definitely changed my life, so I love them. And I'm currently at Hudson Community Foundation right here in Hudson, and it's actually a really great way for me to gain business experience, which is another reason that service learning is so amazing, is that my first site and my second site are so different, so I gain such a variety of experiences. And I get a lot of important jobs at Hudson Community Foundation, and it really is helpful because it shows how much confidence they have in me and how much they rely on me to help them out with things such as grants, the finances, and like organizing their database there. So that's really important. And I've learned so much about like being self-directed, being efficient, and being confident in myself with my abilities. So from the beginning of the year to now, I feel like I've improved so much as a person, being able to care deeper about issues, being more involved with the community, and also understanding like what empathy is, understanding my strengths and weaknesses as a person, and being able to forge bonds with my service learning family and the people that I meet at my site. I am proud to say that I've chosen to continue my education at the University of Alabama, and I will be planning on studying psychology there. And I can definitely say that service learning helped me gain so much confidence and like skills that I need to continue on with my education. So, thank you.
Hi, I'm Adriana. I'm also in service learning, and just like Jordan, I can honestly say that service learning completely changed my life. It was a lot different than I thought it was going to be, because the way they explained it to us, at least last year, was that we would go out and do service projects in places that we were kind of interested in. But service learning really put me outside my comfort zone, and I could see that immediately, because when Miss Banner texted me over the summer, she's like, "You have a great site, you're at Harbor Light Hospice," and I was like, okay. I was really nervous, but Harbor Light, the people at Harbor Light are my favorite people in the world. My site supervisor, her name was Melissa, and she's super nice, and I met so many wonderful ladies and men at the different nursing homes that we went to, and I was really upset when the semester was over, so they let me and my site partner, Allie, continue on there, and so now I still get to see my good friends, Jean and Glad and everybody, and we joke around there, and I always my favorite thing is to go and ask them for advice. They always give me advice on college. They tell me, go somewhere that you can pay for, and they're so great. And then this semester, I'm at a completely opposite place. I'm at Ledgeview Elementary in Macedonia, and those kids are hilarious. They're so funny, but I didn't realize how different it was until I got back from my first day at site, and I realized how tired I was, because obviously working at hospice, I don't really have to run around too much, but when you're with 23 fourth graders, it's a little bit different. They're hilarious. They were a little resistant to me at first because they had a different service learning student, and they were sad that he left after the first semester, but once they found out that I liked Star Wars, it was like all okay. So they're really cute, and I'm just really happy that I got this opportunity, because with what I'm going to study in college, I'm going to study international public health and biomedical engineering. These are two experiences that I never would have had in my life, and they're experiences that I'm always gonna remember and learn from. But I mean, next year, I don't know where I'm going to school next year yet. Probably either the University of Pittsburgh or Loyola University in Chicago. But either way, service learning has really impacted me and made sure that I'm going to keep service in my life throughout my college experience and the rest of my life.
Thank you so much, everyone.
Thank you, Lonnie. James? So the other day I was having lunch with Catherine Sines, and Catherine told me about the Eastwoods School Courtyard Project. It sounded very interesting. So next week for Fine Day, now the Eastwood School, the Courtyard Project is just like we are this close to ending polio, they're this close to raising the money that they need for this project. So next week, our Fine Day will benefit the Eastwood Courtyard, Eastwood School Courtyard Project. James, can you play that video?
So we've had
If
some
we can.
problems with audio, so I'm not sure if you apparently know. Bill, can you? Okay, well.
Is there something down here?
Yeah, all those lights on?
They're all on. Okay. Well, in any case, that's the courtyard that you're seeing there, and it's supposed to be very nice when it's finished. Next week we will have the principal of Eastwoods.
For us to share ideas. This could be a great place to learn and enjoy nature. Thanks to everyone in our community who has already contributed. We hope you will help make the courtyard at Eastwoods a better outdoor space.
So next week, Joe Boycell will be running Fine Day. Our proceeds will go to this project. We will also have Michael Sedlak, the principal of Eastwoods, here to give us a little bit different kind of a presentation on that project. So that will be next week. So let's go on with our main event today. I'd like to call up Bill Wooldridge to introduce our distinguished speaker.
Dangerous around here. Good morning, Rotarians.
Good morning, Bill.
When I was thinking of introducing Tom this morning, and his subject is entrepreneurship, I also thought it would have been very appropriate to have had him last month when the theme was not entrepreneurship, but philanthropy. Because when I think of Hudson, I think of Tom and all that he's done. Tom and Joy gave us that beautiful new downtown we have. He was a developer. I think of the Murdo Athletic Center, manufacturer of quality plastic products for children in the home and garden, which is dedicated to going a step beyond in serving the consumer, employees, shareholders, and the community. Over the years, Tom has provided jobs with annual bonuses and profit-sharing plans for 2,500 employees and families. Tom is strongly committed to lending his leadership in a variety of local national roles. He is a member of the Founders Group of the Marine Corps Heritage Foundation and has served as a director or trustee for several business, civic, educational boards, including University Hospitals of Cleveland, the Davy Tree Company, Universal Electronics, NBNA, Baker McMillan, University of Virginia, Western Reserve Academy, and Akron Children's Hospital. I think you must get worn out. In the spring of 2000, Tom and his wife Joy formed the Hudson Village Development Company to revitalize approximately 14 downtown acres of Hudson, Ohio, where they live. The project, a $50 million public-private partnership, comprises mixed-use retail, residential, restaurants, and a gourmet grocer, something that we've all learned to enjoy. In 1986, the Thomas G. and Joy P. Murdo Foundation was established, and since then has granted over $28 million to local and national charities, hospitals, educational, and so forth. It's a great pleasure to have Tom with us today, and thank you, Tom. It's working now.
So watch your step.
Good morning. It's great to be with you. It's always inspiring to go through your introduction and to sing America the Beautiful. Always tugs at my heart. You're a great group, and I applaud you for what you do for this community and this country. I'm going to try and cover roughly 40-some years of building the Little Tykes Company and the Step 2 Company. I've been asked to talk about the entrepreneurial issues in my life. And for me, it's been all about a wonderful group of people working together and getting the job done at a time when business fields and manufacturing have gone into much more sophisticated ways of getting the job done. We got it done with great people. And I'm going to try to condense all those years into some thoughts that hopefully will register with you on what we were able to achieve and how we did it. One of the great peoples that I've had in my life and in my business career is Jim Miller, who's here with me today. Jim has been my right-hand man since 1991 in building Step 2. And Jim, it's great to have you here, and thanks for all you do. I'm going to try and condense my remarks to what I would consider the high points and the low points in going through building those two companies. And it's going to be tough to condense it in, so hopefully I can answer questions at the end, if you have them, on how did we do this or that. I'm going to go back to 1964, when I had just gotten out of the Marine Corps, and I went to work for Wilson Sporting Goods. I went to work for Wilson because I had used their products in athletics and in other areas, and had a great respect for the company. I was hired as a sales management trainee, started out in Chicago, went to Detroit, and then was sent to North Carolina to cover the North Carolina territory, which I did for 3 years. That's where I met Joy, another very important part of my life. She's sort of been the governor in our family. She holds me down and says, take your time, let's not do this too fast. And being a good North Carolina gal, she's been effective in doing that and helping me. I started out, following the 3 years I spent in North Carolina, was moved over to Collierville, Tennessee, just outside of Memphis, where I was ultimately asked to head up the marketing. Wonder Products made the spring-suspended hobby horse, and Wilson had bought the company in 1965, and it introduced me to the toy industry. They made the spring-suspended hobby horse, and successful company, and I learned a lot just from the few years, the 2 years that I was there. And in 1969, I met a gentleman in New York at the annual toy show, which is at 5th Avenue and 23rd Street, where we had our showrooms. And he had started a little company called Rotary in Aurora just the year before. And we had dinner together, and over a period of time decided to join each other in Aurora, in a barn in Aurora where he had one small Akron McNeil rotational molding machine. This is an unheated barn, and our idea was that I would handle developing the children's product line, and he would handle custom molding. Unfortunately, over about a 6-month period, our lives were a little bit in conflict, and at one point, having moved my family from Memphis, it was in a very tenuous situation, and I ended up going down to speak to the primary investor in the company, Quentin Alexander. This was one of the red letter days in my life. And I walked in to see him to try and explain things. He said, "Tom, I think it's time you ran that company." You can't imagine the thrill of hearing that after going through what we'd gone through. And so that was June of 1970, and we had just moved the company to Solon, 10,000 square feet in Solon, which I thought, this is really, it was heated, and it was a nice building, and we hadn't been there a week when the secretary said, there's a couple of men in the parking lot that want to see you. And so I went out to see him. There's this one fella who seemed to be in charge, and he had two henchmen with him. His name was Danny Green. And Danny wanted to talk to me about organizing the company. And, I sort of forgot myself for a minute. And I said, I've got 15 employees in here. You want to organize this? You want to break us right away? And we didn't have a very nice conversation. I didn't know who Danny Green was. But it didn't go well. And I said, if you want to come back in 3 years or so when we've got some more employees, come on. And we'll talk then. And I immediately went inside and I called a meeting for the 15 employees, and then we had our first company employee meeting, and I talked to them about what our objectives were, what we were going to get done, and it was going to, every month we would have a 1-hour company meeting, and we'd talk to each other about where we're going, what the challenges are, and what we've got to do to get over those barriers. And those meetings continued on right on through step 2. Especially getting started once a month. And then as people got in the groove and saw how we were doing, it wasn't necessary to have them every month. So the idea of those meetings was to get everybody instilled with the belief in do it right. Do it right was basically the golden rule being applied to everything we did. Do unto others as you would have others do unto you. And that carried over into how we built the products, how we handled the service, however, every aspect of the business. And that really, those were really our marching orders right through step 2. At Wonder Products, when I was at Wonder Products, I was introduced to the process of rotational molding. And this was, it turned out to be extremely important in the future. Jimmy Ling, who was at that time ran the first conglomerate. Some of you might remember his name. He had purchased Wilson Sporting Goods, and he put out an edict that all of the companies that he controlled would run every day throughout the year, 24 hours a day. And Wonder Products would shut down their production in November and wouldn't start it up again until April, making the hobby horses. Well, the president of the company said to me, he said, "Do you think you could go out and sell some of our machine time?" We had injection molding machines and rotational molding machines. And I said, I'd be happy to do that. And ended up picking up orders from Holiday Inn, Hunter Fan, and probably 4 or 5 other companies. And then we got an order from American Hospital Supply for 100,000 personal stay bedpans. And the company that had been making them had gone bankrupt in the Chicago area. The name of the firm was Diversiform. And I learned more about rotational molding. In order to get those products made, went through numerous mold modifications, working with the mold makers, learning about the process, and I got very excited about it. We got the bedpans rolling, hit their delivery dates, and at the same time began to meet with this Jack Hill, and decided to leave Wonder Products to go to work in Aurora, Ohio to build this company, Rotodyne. And so that my exposure to rotational molding at that point was a critically important part of my life. Injection molding, even to this day, is a highly automated process. Most people say, oh, you're an injection molder. We were not an injection molder. Rotational molding allowed us to make larger, uniquely designed products characterized by quality, value, and in the process of shipping them service. So that was a real high point in my life, getting Little Tykes started in 1969. I'm skipping over some things in the interest of time. In 1972, Ray Fogg, a name that you might recognize, a wonderful man, came to me and said, Tom, how would you like to have your own building and work with us on a build-lease program? I thought it was great. And I said, we need to get on a rail siding in order to bring our material in at the lowest possible price. We moved to Macedonia, and as well as rotational molding uses a powder as versus a pellet. And one of the expenses that we incurred initially was the price of getting our product, the material, pulverized. And I said, Ray, that'll give us the opportunity to bring product in by rail, to bring in pulverizers and do all this ourselves. So 1972 was a stepping point where we actually were able to critically reduce the cost of our operations. We stayed in those buildings in Solon, pardon me, Macedonia, and until 1994, when we moved to Hudson. And so that was a critically important step in the development of the company. In 1977, our bank, and we had a wonderful, we established a wonderful customer base. And the bank came to me and they said, we're going to withdraw our loan. And you know, it was a critical period of time in our growth. And they were concerned about the leverage that we had because our business was very fall-oriented, supporting the children's product market, which was heavily sold in those holiday months around Christmas. Very tough period, and fortunately I was able to go back to the Cleveland Trust Company, who'd been our loyal supplier. We made a mistake, and in this case it was National City Bank, and they had a new chairman who didn't like toy companies. He'd come from New York. We weren't really a toy company. We didn't operate like a toy company. The nature of our products, how we went to market, we didn't use television advertising. We didn't do take the promotional steps that most of the companies in the industry did. The industry was heavily involved with importing their products. 95%, and probably this is true to this day, 95% of the products, the toy industry products, are made in Asia for the most part. We were the only company, and to this day, I think, Little Tykes and Step 2 are the only two children's product companies that are making the products in the U.S. There are some small companies that are making wooden products and things like that, but it was all American made, and we were always proud of that. Well, what do we do about this loss of the loan? First of all, I recognized that our problem was that we didn't have a contra-seasonal cash flow. And in the industry, it was pretty much understood that don't even try to sell children's products or toys in the spring and summer because there's no market. And I had very qualified people say this to me. But I was successful in we were successful in selling a product to Sears Roebuck, which was the covered turtle sandbox. I'll bet some of you have seen those or used them. And, you know, it was a risk. Weren't sure whether it was going to sell or not. Got it in at Sears Roebuck, and about 10 days later, Carol Sand, who was the buyer, called me. He said, "Tom, these things are really selling." That was a high point in my life, because it proved to me that you could sell children's products in the spring and summer. Well, the upshot of that allowed us to move into an entire line of children's products. It kept our employees employed for year-round, and we got to a point as a result of that success where we didn't need to borrow money. We were making money, and everything went swimmingly. But it also registered with me that I needed to find some capable, talented people. Up to that point, I'd had a number of people that had the role of being plant managers, but none with a professional background. I basically had a foreman who had made the plant manager, and went through a number of others, and finally was able to, in 1982, made a visit to Tonka of Canada, because they were anxious to become a licensee of ours. And in going through the plant there, I said, "Do you mind if your manufacturing manager shows me through the plant?" This was Coleco. The name of the company was Coleco, manufacturing Tonka products. And we'd had some unfortunate experiences with Coleco where they had tried to knock off our products. But I met this gentleman by the name of Wayne Stock. And in a 1-hour plant visit, I said, "You know, are you happy here?" Yeah. I said, "Would you be interested in considering a job with us in Ohio?" And I mention this because Wayne Stock, who joined us in 1982, was a wonderful, wonderful plant manager who fit ideally in our approach to what we were doing. And as Jim has been to me in the finance area, Wayne Stock was from a manufacturing standpoint, and he just made major contributions to our success, along with many, many other people. If I don't say anything else, I have had wonderful people with me throughout. And we have followed a policy that we characterize as the 6 Ps: purpose, people, products, process, patience and perseverance, and profits. And those 6 Ps have been the guidelines for a long time. And I could detail what each one of those means, but I don't think we need to take the time to do that. But we had plants, with Little Tykes, we had 5 other plants: City of Industry, California, Missouri, Guelph, Ontario, Dublin, Ireland, and of course the main facility in Hudson. And the same thing was true with Step 2. We had facilities in Bakersfield, California, and Perrysville, Ohio, and Macedonia, Aurora. Fort Valley, exactly. Fort Valley and Streetsboro. You got to tolerate my age. Yeah. I think the introduction has explained the nature of the products that we're making, and let me just cover a couple of other discussion points that were critical to our success. Designers. We had wonderful designers over the years. I'd love to call all their names out, but they were in the Cleveland area. A wonderful designer from Cincinnati. Critically important. Each year, on average, we would introduce 12 to 15 new products. And you can imagine how that keeps everybody moving. A lot to do. So that was also very exciting for our employees. Over the period of time, we saw tremendous changes in the marketplace. When I mentioned Sears Roebuck, JCPenney, and then they had the catalog showrooms, Best Products, and people like that. They were great customers of ours. We had Child World in the East, which was sort of a counterpart to Toys R Us.
Elmex.
What's that?
Elmex Corporation.
Elmex, absolutely. In Ohio. I don't know where else they were, but I think we shipped to Ohio. And today, most of those companies are out of the toy business anyway, if not totally out of business. So it's gone to, when we left Step 2 and sold Step 2 in 2007, one of the reasons we decided to sell, first of all, it was always to reward those stockholders, many of whom, at least 30 of our staff at Step 2 were stockholders, and it was to reward them on the contributions they'd made to the company in some 15 years that they'd been with us. But the transition in retail got to a point where we were dealing with the Walmarts of the world, Home Depot, Lowe's, and if you want to deal with some of the tough buyers that we dealt with, I mean, they all became extremely aggressive. And, you know, we had built the business in both companies through, where possible, smaller accounts, and always had their profits and their success as a key part to our success. Well, that changed to such a degree that we felt it was time to sell Step 2. And that was a major factor. The difficulty in dealing with them and the demands that they put on us was no longer as enjoyable as it had been. Today, of course, it's evolved into still those big box retailers and now the internet. And the internet is becoming absolutely critical. And it's emerging very, very fast. I'm sure I don't need to talk to you about it. You probably use it yourselves. To this day, the two largest rotational molding companies in the world are Little Tykes and Step 2. That's as a result of Plastics News reporting. They do a survey every year. And I'm very happy to see that they continue to hold that position. The positives of rotational molding, and at the time I decided to make the change in leaving Wonder Products, was that with rotational molding, you had low cost of entry. The machines, as versus an injection molding machine to make those size products, would be like 1/10 of the cost of injection molding. The beauty of it was the ability to make larger, beautifully designed products that had never been seen before in the industry. The problems were labor. When everybody, back in the 60s and then right on down the road, everybody wanted to get labor out of their process. And this is one of the reasons why they had their children's products made in Asia for the most part. Our success in dealing with these rotational molding was getting the commitment from our people. And a part of that was making sure that they got a fair rate of hourly rate. But at the end of every year, we would take about 28% of our pre-tax profits and distribute those to our employees. had some of the greatest Christmas parties you can imagine. And then as we moved on, I think I talked before about 30 of our managers at Step 2 were given stock in the company and had a very nice payout return when the company was sold. Okay, I think that pretty much wraps up some of the high points of the our development of those companies, and I'd be happy to answer any questions. Sometimes this is, to me, this is maybe part of the most interesting part. Oh, let's hit those slides, and I'll give you a visual on. I'm sure most of you look in the yards around. You've seen our products, but this will. These are.
Tom, stay near the mic if you can.
Okay. These are some of the products that were very successful for us. We introduced absolutely new. That's my son, Marshall. We had 4 sons, and they were great models for photography. These are some of the, well, that's the Little Tykes Railroad, and extremely successful product. That's the Cozy Coupe. That's still the largest selling car in America.
Tom, how did the Cozy...
Extremely successful.
How did it come about?
The Cozy Coupe came about as a result of a collaboration I had with Jim Merrill in Cincinnati, who's a fabulous designer. He would come up to see us, and I said, Jim, we want to build a car that has a roof on it. We knew how children love to get under a roof, and he came back and he brought this in a wood pattern, and I knew immediately it was going to be a hit. And I think today they probably sell about 200,000 of those a year, and we had it up to probably 250,000 at one point. And kids love it. This is another riding product. This is a spring 1983 catalog, and 82 is when we pretty much started to introduce the spring and summer products. And I guess I should be doing this very well. Pool. There's the turtle sandbox. Picnic table. Dream Playhouse. Another play on that. The years between 1979 and 85. Now this is a rotational molding machine. Will that stay there?
Yep.
I want to give you a little explanation of what rotational molding looks like. This one is a machine that is made by Rotary, which is a Kent. Oh, here. Thanks. Okay. I'll try and do it this way. I think I've got a laser here.
Center button.
Oh, center button. This is called a carousel rotational molding machine. This is an oven here that goes up to 700 degrees. A interim station before you get to the cooling chamber. The cooling chamber is fan cooled whenever possible, and if you got to do it faster, you've got a water spray that comes down. Right here where that number 3 is, you would have a service area here where the machine operator is there, and he loads the machine manually with whatever the shot weight is for the molds that are on what we call spiders, and then he demolds it from that point too. These machines would run 24 hours a day at different times of the year, but for the most part, at least 6 days a week, and sometimes 7. We were not in favor of running on Sundays, but sometimes you can't avoid it. And so we were very efficient. And the first machines were made by Akron McNeil, and they made a machine called the 1588 back in the 60s and 70s. That's my story. Happy.
For one question.
Tom, thank you very much for sharing your story with us today. Back when you had Little Tykes, then Rubbermaid came along, acquired your company.
Yes.
You stayed some years. You left, I am assuming probably with a non-compete.
I stayed 5 years.
5 years, okay. Then you left. Then at some point after that, you decided to form Step 2, go into competition with Little Tykes. Could you tell us a little bit more about your decision-making process and all that?
Well, when we were owned by Rubbermaid, we took the company from 50 million to 300 million. We were the most profitable division of Rubbermaid. When Stan Galt came in from General Electric, he pretty much rebuilt the staff at Rubbermaid. The wonderful Rubbermaid that I remember had a fabulous, it was considered the country's most successful, most revered company. And that was by Fortune magazine, I believe. As happens, when acquisitions are made, the parent company often feels that they can do things better. Now, having gone from 50 million to 300 million, being the most profitable division, you would think that maybe you'd leave the people in place there that had made it happen. We started to have people coming in to help us with the purchasing, help us with how we handled our finance, how we manufactured, and got very, very involved. And we had a very tight-knit team that got things done the old-fashioned way, and it got to a point where I realized it's time to move on. I don't want to go into some of the details, but it was controversial, separation, and 2 years later, we started the Step 2 company. And with some new employees, and a number of my staff came over and joined me, and thank God. And our success, in a nutshell, was our people. And if I haven't made it clear, I had wonderful, wonderful teams, and I would go to the wall to help or support them whenever that might have come up.
Thank
you.
Thank you, Tom. We don't have those kind of entrepreneurs anymore. Not too many of them. People, very people-oriented entrepreneurs. So thanks to our greeters today, Tom Page and Ron Barnhouse, our setup crew, James, Tom Tobin was here, John Hairston is always here, and so thanks to Adriana for handling the video. Our drawing today is $14 payout and $175 for the jackpot. And the last four numbers of our winning ticket, 3268. 3268. There's a black marble in there. Yep. Nope. Thank you, everybody. Have a great day.